Mayhem with Maverick, brought to you by Mayhem Studios, LLC. It's been a while. I was on vacation, took a little hiatus from making some content. We were up in Tennessee, loving life. We brought our dogs with us, and we were just chilling out, hanging out with some great friends. But hey, I'm back. Unfortunately, this one's not going to be as fun and crazy as most of my contents, because while I was up in Tennessee, Gen Xers kind of got hit hard with some celebrity deaths. So we're going to go over a couple of them that really I felt, sad about. Okay. So the first one, Malcolm Jamal Warner, he passed away. Now for us Gen Xers, we know him from the Cosby Show, right? Now, this is way before the controversies that involved Bill Cosby. This show was an 80s wholesome TV show, and it tackled family issues and current events that were going on in the time of the 80s. It didn't push agendas. It didn't push anything, but tried to make people aware of family values that were important in the world, and, showed some current events of what families were dealing with in the time. And it was a wholesome show. And Warner was a great actor. I know he did some more shows throughout his life. I never watched any of the other ones. But if you didn't know, in 2015, he received a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance for the song Jesus Children. I had no idea he was a singer. I listened to it. It's a beautiful song. Again, what an amazing guy. Unfortunately, if you didn't know how he lost his life, he was swimming off the coast of Costa Rica when a strong current came out. He obviously couldn't get power enough to get out of the current, and he drowned, which is a travesty and sad for such. I mean, he's not that old, he's a pretty young guy compared to some of the other people on the list that we're going to go over. So it's just sad, but I'll always remember him as Theodore Huxtable on the Cosby Show, and some great memories back in the 80s. All right. Lonnie Anderson. She passed away. Now, if you don't know who Lonnie Anderson is, most Gen Xers and people older than us will remember her from the role in WKRP. Okay, there was a TV show. It was about a radio station in Cincinnati. And she had, if I remember, her character was like, the office assistant or something like that. But she was very beautiful, very pretty, right? Not going to lie, she was a sex symbol in the 80s. She was very beautiful. I mean, she ended up marrying Burt Reynolds at one time, one of his multiple Burt Reynolds wives. But I bet most of you didn't know, she was also the cheerlead and partial owner of the Tampa Bay Bandits. Now, who are they? The Tampa Bay Bandits were a professional football team for the United States Football League, the USFL, from 1983 to 1985. Yeah, it was a short-lived league. But the Tampa Bay Bandits were owned by Burt Reynolds. So she owned a little bit because they were married, and she was the cheer captain or cheer lead, right? And she did all this stuff. Now, the Bandits, for a little history for people, the Bandits were coached by Steve Spurrier. If anyone knows that name, I'm pretty sure he's a pretty famous, coach. The Bandits were known for what they called the Bandit Ball Offense. She was a great woman, great actress, beautiful woman. The typical 80s blonde hair, beautiful body. She'll be remembered by many of us because, every Thanksgiving, somebody breaks out the WKRP turkey incident where frozen turkeys are thrown from a helicopter. If you haven't seen it, you got to look it up. It's funny as hell. But, rest in peace, Lonnie. Okay, this is a big hit for us Gen Xers, right? We lost Ozzy Osbourne. Throughout his life, he was known as a crazy rocker. And he's done some crazy things in his life, to include the infamous incident that all of us know that grew up in that time period. He bit the head off a live bat in concert. Now, later in life, he admitted he was drunk and high and thought it was a prop bat. Okay, so he had no idea it was a live bat until he bit into it. So, but again, we all know that Ozzy, he lived his life through alcohol and drugs. But, you know, you can't take judgment because there's many famous rockers that were that way. He just pushed the limits. You know, he was the Prince of Darkness. He had a hit show, The Osbournes, where we get to see inside his life and his family's life. Just like most reality TV shows in the early phases of reality TV, when it was first coming out and everybody was like, ooh, what is this? You know, we got to see part of the Osbournes we really wanted to see. How were they like together? But we saw things that, you know, maybe we didn't want to know about the Osbournes and about Ozzy. Because like we saw an aging rock star who was struggling physically and mentally from his drug and alcohol abuse throughout his life. You know, he used and abused throughout his life. I mean, that's a rocker, right? But now we see on the Osbournes, you see the aging, right, of what that's done to him. You know, he's stutter stepping. He's stuttering when he talks. So this larger than life human being that we watched in concert and watched on MTV, you know, is down to like a crippled old man. And it shocked a lot of us. I know it shocked me and the wife when we watched it, because it's just like, wow, you know, you just think of Ozzy in the Black Sabbath days and Iron Man, and now you're seeing this guy and he's old. And I mean, granted, we all age. I get that. But you can see that the drugs and alcohol really took a toll on Ozzy's body. But of course, Ozzy's not just this crazy rocker, right? He has a huge heart and a great sense of humor. From President Bush calling him out during a big celebration, to Jack introducing him to Mac Sabbath. And I'm going to show you this because this is funny as shit. It shows you his sense of humor. Pull it up here.
All right, so I've got a little surprise.
All right, so this is from, I believe it's from the Jack and Ozzy show, not the
kind of
Osbournes.
adopt your music as a part of like their culture.
You gotta
like, for
see
instance,
this.
the New England Patriots,
If you haven't seen it,
always run out onto the field.
If you don't laugh, there's, you know, honestly, there's something wrong with you.
Shy about it, you know. If you like our music, Sabbath.
I like all your stuff, even on the kind of the dark days of the 80s. You know, there's tokens that I appreciate.
In a band like Black Sabbath, it's very difficult to go from one extreme. Like David Bowie went from being like this Ziggy Stardust to this souling, and it worked. I wouldn't do anything like that. Because
and what I get a kick out of is, right, hearing this conversation between the two of them.
Well, that wasn't me.
He's cursing.
But you
know,
pulled it off.
Like, well, I'm not abolishing the cursing. But in a second here, you're going to see...
Papa.
Yeah.
Papa?
Really good surprise.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, don't ruin the surprise. You got to keep it secret, okay?
Okay.
I don't like surprises.
I know normally you don't, but this is a good one.
This is the best.
Welcome. Alrighty, do yourself a favor and come right here. Come stand right here.
Is this?
Let the madness begin.
Mac Sabbath.
I am frying pan.
See, look at that. Look at that huge smile of his. He's loving this. I had to show that just to show what kind of, you know, person Ozzy is. I mean, he's smiling. Look at the smile on his face. He loves it, you know. He's also got a huge heart. That a farewell concert that he had back to the beginning, they generated $190 million for charity, which was split up between the Birmingham Children's Hospital, Acorn Children's Hospice, and cure Parkinson's. I mean, that's amazing. That's what kind of heart he has for his fellow man. You know, he could have just took all that money, put it, you know, gave it to all his kids, and when he dies, no, he donates a lot of time and money towards charities, which shows the heart that he has. Now, I know that he's from Birmingham, so that shows the Birmingham Children's Hospital, you know, and during the funeral, if you watch his funeral, you know, they had this huge procession through many towns in England. They went through Birmingham, where he's from. Now, I will for sure miss Ozzy and the antics that we all grew up with and love about him, right? But learning about his donations and his charity work, that really made me respect him even more. Okay, so he was a great rocker, a little crazy, right? Great sense of humor. But when I found out about how much charity work he does, and if all you got to do is go on Google, type it up, it'll show you, that just earns so much more respect for him. Now, I can't imagine rock and heavy metal without Ozzy's influence. I mean, you're talking Black Sabbath days, you're talking moving on to a single act as Ozzy because of his wife. You know, there was issues with the manager and all that, but he was part of that heavy metal, that hard rock beginning. And I can't see listening to that music without knowing that Ozzy was a big part of it. Now, his music, I'm going to tell you, his music helped me get through my teens in the 70s and 80s. I loved listening to his music. Was I an angry child? No, it's just something with the rock and roll and the heavy metal back then. We just all enjoyed because it helped us cope with some of the crap that was just going on in life. And he will truly be missed. I will definitely be listening to some of his music within the next couple days to just reminisce. Now, the biggest hit for me, and the biggest loss, the legend himself, Hulk Hogan. This rocked my world when I heard it. It rocked me to the core. I mean, you know, if you were a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, and even some of the 90s, you knew who Hulk Hogan was. I mean, he was on wrestling. He had a TV show. He was in the movies. You could not know who he was. You might not be a fan of wrestling, but you knew who he was, okay? And growing up, he was my hero. When the WWF was the WWE, when it first came out, you know, and there's a whole story about that. If you don't know, the WWE, the WWF became the WWE because the WWF got sued because of their letters, because there's a animal organization with WWF, and they said that it took their copyright, whatever, okay? But when we're talking about the WWF, before it was a WWE, you know, there were so many great wrestlers like Hulk Hogan, Jake the Snake Roberts, Rowdy Piper, the Nature Boy, the Junkyard Dog, Andre the Giant, the Hart Brothers, Jake the Snake Roberts, Shawn Michaels, Sergeant Slaughter, Rocky Johnson, and the Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man Randy Savage. I mean, so many great guys, right? And these guys in Hulk, they developed wrestling entertainment to what it is today and paved the way for these younger guys, these new greats that the younger generation knows. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he was, you know, wrestling royalty. His dad, Rocky, was in wrestling. His grandfather was in wrestling. His grandmother ran wrestling out in Hawaii. Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, another one. You know, Dusty Rhodes was his dad. Kane, The Undertaker, Triple H, Dave Bautista. So many great wrestlers right now are out there. And I mean, you got The Rock, Batista, Cena. They're all actors. You know, they're all acting. Don't know what happened to my computer. They're all acting, right? Hogan paved that way too, and so did Andre the Giant. I mean, one of my favorite movies is The Princess Bride, and Andre the Giant, big as day in that one, right? I'm going to tell you a couple stories. The first time I met Hulk Hogan, I was 13 years old. And I didn't really meet him. I saw him in person. I was on a flight back from Tampa to New York. I had been down here in Clearwater visiting my grandparents. We're flying back. And I'm sitting in like the third or fourth row behind first class. That's right. Not as many people fly with first class, but there was a huge first class, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm looking down the aisle and there's this dude sitting in like row 3 and his legs are stretched over the aisle into row 2. And he's got these big snakeskin boots, right? And I'm like, I think I know who that guy is. And I asked the stewardess, because back then, 13, you could travel alone, Now you got to pay money and all that shit for your kid to fly alone. I got to have a chaperone and shit. But I asked the stewardess, like, who is that guy? She goes, that's Hulk Hogan. Now, this is back when he was first married to Linda, and Linda had a baby in her arms. An infant, and that was Brooke Hogan. And I was like, holy mackerel, and I was like, oh, cool. But I was kind of nervous and weird because I was like, oh, what do I do? And so I didn't ask for his autograph because I felt uncomfortable. He was it looked like he was sleeping. The baby was crying. I didn't want to bother him on the airplane. And and if anybody who knows me knows, I've met a lot of famous people. I don't normally, when I'm working or something, I don't ask for autographs. I've met so many people in my military life and in my civilian law enforcement life and I don't have any of their autographs. I don't have Hulk Hogan's autograph, amazingly enough. And you'll hear in a couple of the stories that, I could have got it any chance I want. But so as I deplane, my dad and my brother are there waiting for me, right? And as I walk out, my dad goes, do you know who was on your airplane? I go, yeah. It was Hulk Hogan. And he goes, yeah. And like, as Dad said, as he came out the gate, just groups of people just running and following him, right? So fast forward a couple more years, right? And I run into him again. Now I'm in the Navy. I'm a second class. I'm a recruiter down here in Clearwater, recruiting for the reserves. So it's been a good amount of time since that 13-year-old boy had saw Hulk Hogan. I was at lunch with a potential recruit that I was trying to bring into the Navy Reserve, and we were at Chili's in Largo, and lo and behold, there's Hulk Hogan. I'm like, holy mackerel, right? We had just finished. I paid. My recruit was leaving, so I walked up to him and I told him the story of, hey, when I was 13 years old, I told him his whole story, and he looked at me, and he laughed, and he said, brother, I'm old. But the way he said it, it was genuine, like, he realizes obviously we all get older, but to me, it wasn't that he was old. It was still Hulk Hogan. He was my hero. I was like, holy mackerel, I'm talking to him. This is freaking awesome, right? But true to the way he is, he shook my hand, and he sat down and I left and I went back to work and told everybody, you didn't get his autograph? Again, I was in my military uniform. I didn't really think it was respectful to ask for his autograph. But I can tell you that knowing who he is, he's a genuine human being. What you saw on TV in the ring was an act. I know people don't want to talk about wrestling and acting, but it was an act. It was a personality. It was a persona that he played. When you met him out in the real world, he was a different person. And he would stop and talk to any fan, any age. That's the kind of person he was. He didn't push people away. If people came up to him, he stopped what he was doing and he talked to them. And that's what made him genuine, right? So we'll go fast forward from that Navy incident, or not incident, but Navy time with him. Now I'm working for Clearwater Police Department, right? I'm on Clearwater Beach. Now I've worked on Clearwater Beach for 5 years of my 20 years at Clearwater. I became close to Hogan. I saw him like multiple times a day. He had a house right on the beach, and it's not hard to see him. People all knew him. Everyone knew where he lived if you were a local. So it wasn't surprising to run into him every day. you know, and if I was in the patrol car and stopped, if he was, you know, he'd run up and he'd go, you know, he'd say hello and he'd check to see I was wearing my seatbelt. And then with the biggest grin, he'd tap me in his chest with those big ass hands. Bam, bam. And then he'd smile and say, just checking, brother. Always wear that vest. Hogan loved law enforcement. He loved everybody. I mean, he was a person that definitely, stardom didn't make him think he was better than anybody else, right? But he liked cops. He liked cops. He supported us. He really supported Clearwater Police Department. Even after the whole incident with Nick and his car accident, he didn't demolish us. He knew we were just doing our jobs. Now, many a times I would be on the beach with my wife used to call them the Lieutenant Dangle shorts. And we had ATVs at the time. We don't have ATVs anymore. They got rid of them. They drive these fancy golf cart things, but we had ATVs. And I used to ride the ATV, you know, every other day, sometimes every day. And I'd be riding up on the North Beach and I'd see Hogan outside and I'd run up and say hello. And he'd always say hi. And we'd talk about stuff and he'd ask how I was doing. And, you know, we'd bullshit, right? And on the rare occasion that Brooke and her friends were there, Hogan, you know, he likes to make people feel uncomfortable sometimes as just to poke and prod people. He used to go, hey, Brookie, say hi to Officer Williams. And like, I'd be like, because she'd be in a bikini and she's like half my age, you know, or not even half my age. She's 10 years younger than me, but it was like, you know, I'm sitting on an ATV, just some fat old cop. And he's like, hey, Brookie, say hi. She'd always wave and her friends would say hi. It was funny because he'd always smile at me and just giggle, you know, because he just liked having fun. And I loved him. I loved hanging out with him and having little talks and just seeing him in general. I have so many other stories about the Hulkster. I could go on for hours. What I want to do is remind everybody that, yes, there was some controversy in his life, but you can't remember all the bad things without remembering that he was a good man. He was a great person. He entertained many generations, and he's got a big heart. He gave a lot of money to charities. He did a lot of things for kids. So I want people to remember him for the good and not for the bad. I loved that I was able to meet, talk, and goof around with my childhood hero. It was like we were buddies. And that's what really, really made me enjoy being around him, because this is a famous person, right? He's on television. He's been in movies. He's making tons of money. He's living in a multi-million-dollar home on the beach, and he's hanging out, spending 10, 15, 20 minutes a day talking to some freaking cop, you know, that was, hey, you were my hero. But that's what made it cool, is that I could talk to him like a normal person, and he talked to me like a normal person. There was no pressure that I was talking to a celebrity. And that's one of the things I liked about him. Now, I think many people who got to meet him would say he was genuine. And his fan base will miss those 21-inch Python, t-shirt ripping, yellow bandana wearing life icon from our childhood. The man will be permeated into our lives. And I hope that you have great memories of him as much as I do. And to Brooke and Nick, I'm sorry that your dad passed away so early. I wish you guys would have been able to mend up some of the problems that your family had. But ultimately, he was your dad. We all know you loved him. My heart goes out to you, and may he rest in peace. Thank you, Hogan, for a great childhood and becoming my friend in my adult life. All right, guys. That's enough of death and sadness. Let's end on a happy note. 400 subscribers. Not a lot compared to Mr. Beast and all these other guys that have been on, right? That's not a lot, 400. But hey, 400 is not bad. And I hit 400 last Saturday. So let's keep it going. I hit this mark because of you guys, not because of me. Because you guys are spreading the information. You guys are telling people about me, and you're having people click on this. So thank you, because I wouldn't be here continuing on without you. So with that being said, 400, let's make it more. Tell your family, tell your friends, tell your frenemies. I don't care. Tell everybody. Have them like my videos. Have them subscribe. Let's make this bigger. Let's make this journey together, because that's what it is. This is a journey for me. It's a journey for you. We'll talk about things. Let's make this as big as we can. Thank you again for all the 400 subscribers that follow me. Let's get some more. And guys, I'm out of here.